No, I just think it's equal sort of.
Customer information.
No, I just think kind of equal sort of. Reach out to our own.
Customer information. information. All folded and unfolded e-scooters and e-unicycles are prohibited on all TfL's premises and services.
Your train equipped in platform 2 is the South Western Railway service to Leeds. Westport calling at Wilmington South, Airport Parkway, Ramsey, and Westport. This train is formed or coach. The train approaching platform 1 is 1251 Southwestern Railway Service 2. Calling at Wolf Miller North End, this train is formed of 4 coaches. The train approaching platform 2 is the 112 Southwestern Railway Service to Haxton North, calling at Warden, Cross Road, Dolmore South, Stafford Road, and Haxton North. This train is formed of 4 coaches.